I'd like to start by reading parts of this long thing that's 5 years of work. It's in a very scattered state at the moment. I never really made any plan for what shape it was going to take, and the first 4 parts kind of evolved themselves in a sort of an order, and then they got to be notions on my part of what I wanted to do. As soon as they got to be notions, the poem veered in opposite directions from the notions constantly, so that I have parts that exactly fit my notion of what I wanted to do next, and then other parts that are just the next insistent part of the poem. And how part 5 and 6 are eventually going to shape up, I don't know. But I'm going to just read odd pieces from it, from the first parts. Not in any, I'll go in order through the manuscript, but I won't read like page 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll, flip through until I find something I want to read. And I'll probably start kind of low and read things that take more energy later, because I'm still driving that freeway. If that's okay with you guys. From part 1, Loba starts with 2 quotes. There's a quote that they sort of set the tone for it. One is a quote from an Indian song in an anthology called Shaking the Pumpkin, and that is, "It would be very pleasant to die with a wolf woman. It would be very pleasant." And the other quote is 2 lines from a Chinese ode in the I Ching, which is the book of odes. And that goes, "A clever man builds a city. A clever woman lays one low." And so, bouncing through these parts. Part 1 seems now to me to be basically kind of feeling my way into the poem, introductory material, introducing this figure to myself, I guess, and therefore to you. Began like this, and it began out of the blue like a radio broadcast you don't understand, coming into your head. "If he did not come apart in her hands, he fell like flint on her ribs. There was no middle way. The rocks screamed in the flowing water, stars dizzy with pain. If he was not daisies in her soup, he was another nettle in her hair. She stumbled crazy over the stony path between slanderous trees. Even field mice knew she called the shots. Dimensions of the obsidian cross he hung on, singing in the sun. Her eyes, cloudy with nightmare, she grinned, baring her wolf's teeth." That came bang as a shot in the middle of a class I was teaching in a high school in Watsonville. And I just had to let the other guy take over the class and write it down. Had no notion what it was talking about. Had no notion what the next part or 2 was about, and slowly began to realize they all had this wolf. This is about a little further in. "Is she city? Gate she is, we know, and has been, but the road paved with white stones? Her paws are cut by it. The lights blind her, yet she knows. She comes to it, white porcelain lining dome of her brain. She flies to it on broomstick, on gold mandala, platter or calendar. She sits, her tail curled round her neat white paws." And it began, there were just lots of separate takes. There's one that's kind of from a painting of Kali, the Indian goddess. You know the Indian goddess? You know her, good. "See the young black naked woman riding a dead white man. Her hair greasy, she whips him and he flies through the smoky air. Her hand is in her mouth. She is eating flesh, it stinks. Snakes wind around her ankles. Her hand touches the wet earth. Her hand shakes a gourd rattle. She laughs. Her fangs flash white and red. They are set with rubies." All through this thing are shot pieces of dreams, it's like one of the threads in the tapestry. And this was a dream. "Hush, the old young woman touches you. She is gold. She wears a peaked cap. Vines grow out of it. Her tongue flicks at the corners of her mouth. She says, 'The white gold, almost invisible, is made from the red-yellow metal. It is the link. Bodies pass out of hers, doubles in silver, copper, iron, glistening. They lick their lips. They float on out. Her eyes show waters parting a jungle. Her arms are vines around you. Her tongue is growing in your mouth. She thrusts a finger deep into your cunt. Then the next part picked up the refrain of the beginning, if you do not come apart, If you do not come apart like bread in her hands, she falls like steel on your heart. The flesh knows better than the spirit what the soul has eyes for. Has she sunk root in your watering place? Does she look with her wolf's eyes out of your head? There's lots more to the first part. And the second part tended to get into kind of more simply personal experiences. There's a whole long birth section in it, which I won't read because it's too long. Things that were closer to home. This particular passage I'm going to read you, I wrote, I don't know, I think it's helpful to tell you guys these things, I don't know. I wrote this particular part. I was writing one morning, I stepped into my 14-year-old daughter's room, and the particular tone of that young girl's kind of expectation really tore me up, and I went and I wrote this. It is still news to her that passion can steer her wrong. Though she went down 1,000 times, strung out across railroad tracks, off bridges, under cars, or stiff, glass bottles still in hand, hair soft on greasy pillows, still it is news she cannot follow love, his burning footsteps in blue crystal snow, and still come out all right. That started from that room, but it didn't stay there, and it was followed by this, which was a whole other take of other women I'd known a long time before. Can you, friend, say you never leaned across her jagged, bloody wrists to blow her dripping candles out after you spread a tattered army blanket over her swollen face? A whole other face of her. And when I say of her, it's like wolf or some kind of animal which changes in some of the parts. It's like human woman, and it's like goddess. And what my trip has been a lot is recognizing that these are all like in me, in everyone, okay, but in everyone is easy to say, in yourself, to recognize that these things you're writing are like you. It's amazing for me, some of them, as I went on. When she hoots, it makes the little grasses bloom. When she shuffles her soft, worn moccasins, her headdress, horns made of corn cobs, rustled as she turned, sideways in the flat light off Pueblo walls. Another one. She strides in blue jeans to the corner bar. She dances with the old women. The men light up. They order wine. Sawdust is flying under her feet, her sneakers thudding soft. Her wispy hair falls sometimes into her face. Were it not for the ring of fur around her ankles, just over her bobby socks, there's no one would ever guess her name. There's as I said, a long birth part, which I don't want to get into because it's too long. It takes a while to read. It's followed by a very brief. The end of the birth thing is, was he limp? Did he stir with life? Did she hear his soft breath in her ear? It's followed by the Loba sings to her cub. Oh, my mole, sudden and perfect, golden gopher tunneling to light, oh, separated strands of our breath, bright silver threads of spirit, oh, quicksilver spurt of fist, scansion of unfocused eyeball, grace of your cry or song, my cry, or you lie warm, wet on the soggy pelt of my hollowed belly, my bones curve up to embrace you. There's 3 love songs at the end of that, one of which kind of, to me, reads like it's a hymn to Shiva, but I'm not sure. And then in the third part, it's easier after you're a ways away from it to make these classifications, say this part is more about this or that, but it's not really true. But I'll say it anyway. The third part tends to be a lot goddess material. It just fell out that way. I wasn't planning it. It has a quote at its beginning, which is from Robert Graves quoting Ovid, you know. Her power is to open what is shut, shut what is open. Some shapes of the Loba. White crow in the snow carrying dried branch of dead hawthorn. The wind sets it aflame. She circles screaming in white sky over white broken ice, calling his name. White bitch in an open pit howling after the slow-moving dead. They move through the jointed door. They spit white phantom beans on the dirty straw. She seeks to blend, to melt her glowing substance into wraith life, seeks to move smoothly enough to be invisible, but they smell the elf light of her hope. They elude. She is dirty white dog at your door. Mistress owl drinking blood of infants left alone on the hearth. Mistress of all disaster, she cannot mourn. Each dawn throws a white veil over the past, covers with snow all the half-eaten corpses. Each dawn is quicklime, stripping yesterday to glowing white bones and their shadows. There's bunches of them. Then there's this. She lay on the straw mat in the warm room, thinking about love all the afternoon, at least remembering, not thinking at all. There was no wind, child voices in the street. Sleep on her eyes, she lay, slightly absurd, headband askew, daydreaming, a silly smile on her lips, her legs akimbo. There's all manner of kind of mythological-ish stuff there. There's a litany that begins, I have been a black cat in a silver chair. I have been a curled fist in a glove. I have been a fingernail in your skin. I have been a gold spike in the skull. I have hung. I have dropped from trees. I have dropped piecemeal from the strongest shoulder. It goes on for ways. I don't really know how to pick and choose from this. Here's another. Is he in bondage? Does he bow unwilling to her embrace? Her velvet claws skid on his tender skin. Her fur cosms his hairless body. He shuts his eyes. He is Christian martyr swooning in arena, transfixed eternal mystic in the desert, stigmata in his hands. He is her stripling son or brother. He is ancient stony emperor who will flay her alive. He stands Satan to her coffin while she weaves her dozen around him, leans on marble column, broken Saint Sebastian, stricken by arrows she does not recognize. Does he know death from desire, passion from immolation? Her tail knocks at his sides, her growls are shaking in his brain. She smiles, she crouches for him, raises her haunch. What happened to me in part 4 of the poem is it kind of removed itself a step. I'd sort of like to finish this and then we'll talk about it, okay? And I'll read from the different parts. It kind of removed itself a step, and part 4 became like poems about paintings of wolf women and poems about, there's one section where I finally described the dream that happened the year before the poem began. And part 4 has a quote in the beginning from a Gnostic text called the Gospel of Eve. And the quote is, I have come to know myself and have gathered myself from everywhere. One of those once removed things I stole from, I had been working very boringly in poetry in the schools, or by then I was tired of it, which is a federal program. And one of the things you have the kids do is write lie poems, poems made up of lies. So one of these sections is called Some Lies About the Loba. That she is eternal, that she sings, that she is star-born, that she gathers crystal, that she can be confused with Isis, that she is the goal, that she knows her name, that she swims in the purple sky, that her fingers are pale and strong. that she is black, that she is white, that you always know who she is when she appears, that she strides on battlements, that she sifts like stones in the sea, that you can hear her approach, that her jeweled feet tread any particular measure, that there is anything about her which cannot be said, that she relishes tombstones, falls down marble stairs, that she is ground only, that she is not ground, that you can remember the first time you met, that she is always with you, that she can be seen without grace, that there is anything to say of her which is not truth. There's one called A Painting of the Loba and one called Four Poets Speak of Her, which kind of runs through different things like the theories about the dying king and the goddess and golden bough and all that, which I won't go into now. And the dream, the Loba reveals herself. She came to hunt me down, carried down ladder trussed like game herself, and then set free, the hunted turning hunter. She came through stone labyrinths worn by her steps, came to the awesome thunder and drum of her name, the Loba mantra echoing through the flat flagstone walls, the footsteps of the Loba, drumming. She came to hunt, but I did not stay to be hunted. Instead would be gone again, silent children in tow. She came, she followed, she did not pursue, but walked, patient behind me like some big, rangy dog. She came to hunt. She strode over that worn stone floor, tailgating, only a step or two behind me. I turned to confront, to face her, ring of fur setting off the purity of her head. She who was to have devoured me stood, strong, patient, recognizably goddess, protectress, great mystic beast of European forest, green warrior woman towering, kind watchdog I could leave the children with, mother and sister, myself. Okay, section 4 ends with something called the Loba as Eve. Which is a 5-part poem based on a longer quote from the Gospel of Eve. I've only found these 2 quotes. They were in a book by Hans Jonas called A Gnostic Religion. I have no idea where you find the Gospel of Eve. I believe that when I looked it up in his thing, there was some kind of manuscript somewhere in Germany or somewhere that he got these from. Anyway, this other quote is, I am thou, and thou art I, and where thou art, I am, and in all things am I dispersed, and from wherever thou willst, thou gatherest me, but in gathering me, thou gatherest thyself. And I'm not going to read the whole 5 parts. Each one begins with, I am thou, and thou art I, but I don't want to because it will take long, and there's a limit to how much of this anybody can listen to. But I'll read the first and then the fourth. That's what I'll do. I am thou, and thou art I. Where tossing in gray sheets you weep, I am. Where pouring like mist you scatter among the stars, I shine. Where in black oceans, let me say something. Let me say that this I is not the I. Maybe it's not the I of the poet, except in that sense in which you recognize that all these people are yourself, but it's the I of Eve. Okay. And the sense of the Gnostics is that we are caught, right? We're a spirit that's been trapped in a matter universe, okay? So I'm moving from that spot. And when Eve says I, she's insisting in some way, although I certainly wasn't thinking this out in a philosophical or logical manner when I wrote the poem, that you can't separate, you can't say that, you can't make that distinction, because she is the matter universe, the mother, the feminine aspect of the thing is that, She says at one point, the fruit I hold out, meaning the apple in the Garden of Eden, spins the Dharma wheel, keeps the whole thing going, makes the whole thing happen, But she's definitely speaking as that, as the matter, universe, but also as that spirit caught in it. That's why we're tossing in gray sheets you weep, I am. Okay, now at some point you make the great jump and accept that you're that, all that, but this I isn't the simple I of, I am writing a love poem to Billy. It's a little different I. Okay. I am thou and thou art I. Where tossing in gray sheets you weep, I am. Where pouring like mist you scatter among the stars, I shine. Where in black oceans of sea and sky you die, I chant, a voice like angels from the heart of virgin gold, plaint of the unicorn caught in the boundless circle. Where you confront broken glass, lost trees, and men tossed up on my beaches, hear me pray. Your words slip off my tongue. I am pearl of your final tears, none other than your flesh, though it go soft. I am worm in the tight bud, burst of star cloud that covers your dream and morning. I am sacred mare, grazing in meadow of your spirit, and you run in my wind. Hear the chimes that break from my eyes like infants, struggling eternally against these swaddling clothes. And this is part 4 of this. And from wherever thou willst, thou gatherest me. Steel from the belly of Ares, or that cold fire which plays above the sea. White sow munching acorns in graveyards where roots of oaks wrap the powdery bones of the divas. There suckle at my tits, crucify me like a beetle on your desk. Nod out amidst the rustling play of lizards, recognize epics the lichen whisper, read twigs and leaves as they fall. Nurture my life with quartz and alabaster, and drink my blood from a vein in my lower leg. I neigh, I nuzzle you, I explode your certain myth. I crawl slimy from a cave beneath your heart. I hiss, I spit oracles at your front door in a language you have forgotten. I unroll the scroll of your despair. I bind your children with it. It is for this you love me. It is for this you seek me everywhere. Because I gave you apples out of season. Because I gnaw at the boundaries of the light. And that ended part 4 of Loba, and then Eve kind of dictated a whole bunch of stuff that had to follow her in some way. I mean, that's the point where the poem started to its demand that I make some plan for it, and that's the point where it started to also diversify from that plan. She wanted her sister Lilith. Lilith? Do you know about Lilith, you guys? Lilith was made before Eve, but she wasn't made from Adam's rib, right? And she was, well, okay, there's some that say that Lilith wasn't made by God at all, that she sprung self-contained from the abyss. She and her lover Samael, you know. But if you say she was made before Eve, she was made of the same clay as Adam, and she wouldn't obey him. So she was exiled. And another lady was made who was more reasonable. That's one of the stories. There's lots. Lilith is dangerous if you happen to be afraid of her. She steals the seed if you're having a wet dream, or she comes and tries to steal seed when people are having intercourse to make demon children out of. And she makes all these demon children. I don't know what she does with them. But for me, Lilith became, as I read about her in things, became that place where Eve is spirit and matter and you can't separate them. Lilith is that taste in your mouth when it's plain old sex with nothing else happening. When you wake up in the morning and you wish you weren't in that particular bed, you know. It's the flesh without spirit in it in some way was how Lilith evolved for me as I wrote this poem. And she's not really Loba, so she's not really a section of Loba, but she's called Lilith and Interlude. And I'm not going to read you most of her. She's kind of semi like a vampire in some ways, which she is in the mythologies too, an incubus. She flies over partitions on the wings of a bat while you play cards with a stranger. She bites your foot. She leaves screeching at the sight of your silver and turquoise. The stranger melts. Dank mirror, a gilded swamp in which you sink. A singing parchment that bursts continually to flame. Kingdom of smoke in which swirl demon children, whining eternally for the golden bread. Panis Angelicus, they glimpsed on a snowy mountain. Whose mouth sits on your mouth so that you freeze? Who blew like cold wind through the broken window? Who sits like Sphinx on your chest? And do you dare win at her game? The horned lady stands on stands on lions. She is winged and flanked by owls. Or is she soft hermaphrodite, holds you against his chest? You suffocate. Your cunt pulses with weird green hunger you would not acknowledge. The deal she offers in her business suit seems straight enough. Faust, too, he thought so. She sleeps on sheepskins in your dining room, shoots smack into her arm, murmurs soothingly of the glorious vegetable soup she will make tomorrow. The velvet pillow under her head is torn. The lice writhe in her eyebrows. You unpin her rhinestone brooch, slip the fringed piano shawl off her skinny shoulders. She sinks her teeth in your wrist.
That's the vampire version.
Sort of. It's not really. I mean, that's a lady that I could name. Started me on that section. No. Oh, Lil, you promised me secrets of mushroom and fern, elf language of mosses. You swore that I'd hear your blood sing, took me to burial grounds where blue bones danced to bikers' radios, sank in a murky lake where I could not follow you. You promised endless, perfect afternoons where wood rots slow, where a house falls to dust in slanting light through the redwoods, but left with only the red glint of meat between your teeth, red glint of your lipstick, blood of mule deer and jackrabbit on your murderous black crossroads. The roads belong to her, as they do to Hecate. Okay, part 5 of this poem was going to be, makes me nervous when people take notes. Part 5 of this poem was going to be was going to be a study of the Mary legend, based on, partly started off from a Hans Memling painting, The Seven Joys of the Virgin. But before Mary showed up, all these other ladies showed up first, and I did a whole lot of other parts. One of them is a huntress, and one of them is Persephone, and one of them is Helen. I won't read you all them. One of them is Isolde. When she's on the ship to go back to Tristan, Tristan's dying, and Isolde has been summoned. And the other Isolde, who's with Tristan at that point, reports that the ship is empty, that doesn't have Isolde on it, and Tristan turns his face to the wall and dies. And then she gets there and lies down next to him and dies also. So very neat. But the drawing Isolde on the ship that William Morris did is of this incredibly weighty situation where the woman is really leaning the mast on the mast and like pushing the whole thing forward. It's heavy with draperies and it's really heavy with sorrow. And it was from that drawing that this poem came. Isolde on the ship. Is there other time than too late? When we wake enough to recognize time, is it not always then too late? Does the beloved's breath still miss the mirror? What balances at the turn of sundial? Dream within dream within dream. Exquisite as milk opals smeared with blood, yours and his, while the worms work in the hollows of your face, while the clouds fly across the wailing moon. How sails strain, mast creaks, this rain cold as his kisses. My thin wrists strain to tie me to this ship which arrives. Does it arrive in time? That is too late. We recognize this ship. His fierce arm carries me across thresholds of water. He does not wait. Too late we recognize sin, that we live misguided, we die alone, it might be. The waves reach salty. Well, they will not have me unless they have us both. We engage oarless in one more race. We beach breathless. This wind will tangle our hair graveside. This shore rocks more than the ocean. Then Eloise and St. Bridget showed up, and Juliana of Norwich, and then finally Mary showed up. I'm not going to do much of Mary, just a part or two. I haven't finished all 7 of these. I've only done 1, 2, 3, 4 of them completely, of the actual joys, and some other things snuck in, like the flight into Egypt, but I assume basically we know the Mary legend, right? Let me read the Annunciation, which is kind of just a narrative poem. A tall man, towering, it seemed to me in anger. I was 15 only, and his urgency, murderous rage, and assault I bent under. I saw the lilies bend also. I had been spinning flax, violet for the temple veil. I had just gone to the well for water, and when I returned, he was there, a flat stone, towering, murderous rage like the law. They call it love. His voice was harsh. I bent. I tried to evade. Sound trembled in my gut. My bowels moved with fear. The red tiles shifted beneath me. A light flashed from his eyes, his hand, the blue stone in his ring, and my bowels caught with fear. He said, "Hail full of grace," I remember. My hand found a psalter, something real, the smooth vellum sun-warmed under my fingers. The wind had stilled, the lilies bent of themselves. My body bent under weight of robes. White muslin gleamed in my tears in sunlight like a gold brocade. And my head, too, bent under weight of hair. I fell to my knees. I salted the ground before me. He did not move. His voice had turned to thunder. There was no word to remember but womb. He spoke of my womb, the fruit of my womb, sunlight and thunder. I had not heard thunder before in such blinding light. The rose, the thorn, the thistle, the rose, the thorn, the myrtle, the lily, the thorn, the thistle, the lily and the myrtle, the lily, the rose, the thistle, the lily, the thistle, the myrtle. The wind bent the palm trees again. The room was empty. I stood again as one stands after earthquake. My young girl's hands began to spin the scarlet thread for the temple. Zodiac, which is there's a correspondence between the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 steps of the alchemical process. But that's not happening yet. Meanwhile, she's just loping about, getting ready. The first section of this happened quite a while ago, is a preface kind of thing for it. This wolf is black. Suddenly she's a wolf again, right? This wolf is black. She does not stand among columns. She does not hand the white rose or the red to the 2 gentlemen who flank her. Look at her. She's about to run a race. She's about to run circles around the sun. She sits demure, telling the stars like silver beads. They glide through her motionless paws. They twist like ebony chaplets, enclosing golden secrets. She is sleek and perfect like the falcon. She stands, angular as maiden in a silk dress, coiled tight as the spiraling labyrinth with bloody lamb at its heart. She is poised, quivers slightly, prepares to run circles around the sun. Okay. There's a few sections of this, and there are more, or here's one that I would like to read. I wrote it recently, this last month, I guess. It's called The Loba Recovers the Memory of a Mare. I don't know why it has that title. A lot of stuff you don't know why. It comes like dictation. So a lot of strange stuff happened when I wrote this, but I won't go into that either. Small hooves, the ankles fragile, unsteady, not rooted here. The eyes anxious, eyes of a doe who has been hunted but not within recent memory, who walked across America behind gaunt, violent yogis and died ODing in methadone jail, scarfing the evidence, or destitute in Fiji, wiring home for comfort, Destroyed among oil lamps, Morocco seeking dead fingers, old man in Afghani jail, pregnant, barefoot and whoring. Who did we pray? Who did we pray to then? Laid out flowerless in abandoned basement, blue, stiff, and salt injection just out of reach. Wrote lipstick save yourself on tin rail of furnished room bed. Eloped with white slaver and died Indiana of unmentioned griefs. Or in love again, peaceful, scrawled, candle smoke, there is salvation, triumphant on borrowed ceiling, while friends coughed in the kitchen. Who left tapestries, evidence, baby bottle behind in Vancouver, and hitched to Seattle for the mushroom season, trailing welfare checks and stolen money orders, Chicago gangster in earrings who minded the baby, who gathered reed grass for the wiki-up, eating horse meat steaks in Colorado dusk, the painted hills bucking and neighing. It was her ankles were slender, it was her eyes were tired, oatmeal and grits while the old man naked in bed read Bible, jerked off. And who was the whore of Babylon in the kerosene lamp of your childhood? It was her skirt, was greasy. It was her skirt, was graceful. It was her skirt you clung to till she fell, you fell. And who now remembers her hands working dye into cotton? Slant of her green eyes, Sagamore cafeteria. Who has tears for girls now on Route 1, the babies wrapped in a scarf, the green always farther north, farther than you can walk. Her ankles fragile, unrooted, she walks into the wind. That's one of the recent parts of the Hunt thing. Will make you flesh again. Have you slipped away? Think you to elude, become past, and black and white as photographs? Oh, I will lure you into being till you stand, flesh solid against my own. I will spread my hair over your feet. My tongue shall give you shape. I will make you flesh and carry you away. Oh, bright, black Lord you are and I, your sister and magic carpet. Will you ride? 2. Oh, I tumbled here for you. I put on flesh, drew down this skull over my flaming light, slipped on this shaggy pelt to make it easy for your spirit to speak to mine. As in that bright, unclouded ocean where the stars are not yet born, where you and I slid, tumbling like dolphins, we could not speak each other's names. Oh, you leaped into the worlds and I followed, did I not? Falling and shrieking, I solidified, merely to look, my Lord, once more into your great, sad beast eyes. Share this sorrow. Now, Loba doesn't get into little homey domestic poems about men and women, I guess. Yeah. Okay, well, the Fool I already explained. The Fool. It's the first card of the Tarot Major Arcana. The ox of air draws power down to power. Drunken clarity. He is thirst assuaging himself. Where else should he go? From power to unbridled power. I want to read all of them. The Lovers. It is the sword makes Gemini two, separates what is forever one. The lovers under the gaze of the black pearl taste iron of sword from which they both lick honey. They tumble through branches of the tree. They flee from her to lie beside Adonis. Return again, hide in her robes. It is the sword. It is beginning of the journey. You want me to explain it? Well, the path of the lovers has the letter Zain, which is the letter of the sword. The Hebrew correspondence for it is the sword. It moves from the yin pole of this tree. There's this crown, and then there's these two. It moves from the yin pole, which is called the sorrowful mother, because just as the yang pole is pure energy, the yin pole is pure form or limitation. So it's the first time that energy, actually the tree of life is a diagram of how the most not conceivable unmaterial energy kind of precipitates out like in a chemical solution to the material universe. You know, and it goes through these changes on the way. So it moves from the mother to the center of the tree, which is called Tippereth, which means beauty, and is the correspondence of the sun, and is also the place, if you are on the tree, of all the dying gods, the redeemers, the kings of that sort, like Adonis, Christ, all those that rejuvenate. So when I say they flee from her to lie beside Adonis, that's the path of that card on the tree of life. And the black pearl is the jewel for the mother place, the totally yin. Each of the pieces of the tree has a corresponding stone, as well as other things. Sort of. It's the Kabbalah sort of adapted by people working in the 19th century a lot. So anyway, this whole thing is a poem that, I don't know if I want to read more. This whole thing is a poem that got reworked a whole lot. Well, some sections of that one I just read you, The Lovers, didn't get reworked, except maybe a word or two, but some of them got reworked a whole lot. Let me see if I can find one that did. The Wheel of Fortune on the Tarot deck has a correspondence of Jupiter. Jupiter's stone is any blue stone like sapphire or lapis. On the tree, the place of it is from, if I can remember, the place of it is from the place of a place called Love, which is the second yang thing down, which is represented as like the tent of Abraham with all four doors open so that everyone could come and go freely and take what they needed. So I call that the Great Hall. It goes down to Netzach, which is victory, which is the place of Venus, which is the place of all vegetable life and tides and cycles. So the Wheel of Fortune is Jupiter's, right? And it's the letter is Kaf, which is the palm of the hand, the cupped palm. Jupiter, dreamer, god of lapis and wheeling night sky, open hand, cupped palm, as much of the waters as you could carry back from the great hall to the green pulse of tide, of seasons, turning dream of vegetable life, abundant one. And that's just called the Wheel of Fortune. Now that one got rewritten some to cut it down and reworked. Okay, the letter for the tower is Pei, which is called them out. It's the same sign as Kaf, the cupped hand, except it has like a tongue in the middle. It's like a curve with a little, and it's the sign of Mars. Okay. It goes from Netzach, victory, which is this Venus place I just described as the vegetable, instinctive life, sexual life place, to Had, which is called splendor, which is a place of the intellect, and is Hermes, belongs to Hermes. So you have victory to splendor, or instinctive life to intellectual life, or the love goddess to the magician, is the path of the tower. And the tower card, of course, you all know, I guess, is the card that symbolizes like the destruction of the structure of things as you know it. It's usually called the ruined tower, and it's a tower struck by lightning and falling down. So and it's Mars. Okay, the tower. This is the war we know, the other Mars that is everywhere, devouring mouth, as in Kali or Krishna, love God revealed in his true form. This is the passion no one has spoken, Aphrodite and Hermes, blessed lightning striking the well-built tower, making an end of awkward first beginnings. Now the work. I think, unless you guys have more questions about this, I just brought it out as an example of that kind of thing where you really do work a poem. I hope you go through hell tonight, beloved. I hope you choke to death on lumps of stars. and by your bed a window with frost and moon on frost, and you want to scream and can't because your woman is, I hope, right there asleep. Baby, I hope you never shut your eyes, so two of us can pick up on this dawn. Now, something like that I'd rewrite maybe 30 times, you know. And Jack would say, what are you doing that for, you know? And his insistence on that and his insistence on the fact that I just had to let go in my life to remember one night there was a party at Allen Ginsberg's house on 2nd Street. And it came the time, it was important because Philip Whalen had just come out from this coast and he didn't get out to the East Coast too often. Everybody was rapping and I was hanging out, you know. I guess I'm only 8 or 10 years younger than those guys, but, you know, it was enough so that it was a different. And I was just hanging out listening, you know, and then I got up and said I had a split because I promised my babysitter I'd be home by midnight. And Jack by this time was pretty high or drunk on the floor, and he raised himself up on one elbow and said, DiPrima, until you forget your babysitter, you're never going to be a writer. He was right, you know, he was completely right. Is there any particular what I meant really was, are there any special ones you want to hear? Number 4. Sure. Left to themselves, people grow their hair. Left to themselves, they take off their shoes. Left to themselves, they make love, sleep easily, share blankets, dope, and children. They are not lazy or afraid. They plant seeds, they smile, they speak to one another. The word coming into its own, touch of love on the brain, the ear. We return with the sea, the tides. We return as often as leaves, as numerous as grass. Gentle, insistent, we remember the way. Our babes toddle barefoot through the cities of the universe. '68. I started them. Advocating the overthrow of government is a crime. Overthrowing it is something else altogether. It is sometimes called revolution. But don't kid yourself, government is not where it's at. It's only a good place to start, i.e., 1, kill head of Dow Chemical, 2, destroy plant, 3, make it unprofitable for them to build again, destroy concept of money as we know it, get rid of interest, savings, inheritance, pounds money, dated coupons that come in the mail to everyone and are void in 90 days is still a good idea. Or let's start with no money at all and invent it if we need it. Or mimeograph it and everyone print as much as they want and see what happens. Declare a moratorium on debt. The Continental Congress did, on all debts, public and private. And no one owns the land. It can be held for use. No man holding more than he can work, himself and family working. Let no one work for another except for love, and what you make above your needs be given to the tribe, a commonwealth. None of us knows the answers. Think about these things. The day will come when we will have to know the answers. What do you want your kids to learn? Do you care if they know factoring, chemical formulae, theory of numbers, equations, philosophy, semantics, symbolic logic, Latin, history, so-called, which is merely history of mind of Western man, least interesting of numberless manifestations on this planet? Do you care if he learns to eat off the woods, to set a broken arm, to mend his own clothes, cook simple food, deliver a calf or baby? If there are cars, should he not be able to keep his running? How will he learn these things? Will he learn them cut off in a plaster box, encased in a larger cement box called school, dealing with paper from morning till night, grinding no clay or mortar, no pigment, setting no seedlings in black earth come spring? How will he know to trap a rabbit, build a raft, to navigate by stars or find safe ground to sleep on? What is he doing all his learning years inside, as if the planet were no more than a vehicle for carrying our plastic constructs around the sun? Beware of those who say we are the beautiful losers, who stand in their long hair and wait to be punished, who weep on beaches for our isolation. We are not alone. We have brothers in all the hills. We have sisters in the jungles and in the Ozarks. We even have brothers on the frozen tundra. They sit by their fires. They sing. They gather arms. They multiply. They will reclaim the earth. Nowhere we can go but they are waiting for us. No exile where we will not hear welcome home. Good morning, sister, let me work with you. Good morning, brother, let me fight by your side. Not all the works of Mozart worth one human life. Not all the brocades of the Potala Palace. Better we should wear homespun than some in Orlan, some in Thailand silk. The children of Bengal weave gold thread in silk saris, 6 years old, 8 years old, for export. They don't sing. The singers are for export, Folkways Records. Better we should all have homemade flutes and practice excruciatingly upon them 100 years, till we learn to make our own music. Any other that you want to hear? Whatever. I wrote this one during the demonstrations for when the Cambodian bombing was happening, which was what, 71? 70 or 71. It's called San Francisco Note. I think I'll stay on this earthquake fault near this still active volcano in this armed fortress facing a dying ocean and covered with dirt while the streets burn up and the rocks fly and pepper gas lays us out. 'Cause that's where my friends are, you bastards. Not that you know what that means. Ain't gonna cop to it. Ain't gonna be scared no more. We all know the same songs, mushrooms, butterflies. We all have the same babies. Dig it, the woods are big. This one's called It Takes Courage to Say No. No to canned corn and instant mashed potatoes. No to Rice Krispies. No to Special K. No to margarine, mono, and diglycerides, NSDA for coloring causing cancer. No to white bread bleached with nerve gas, Wonder Bread. No to everything fried in hardened oil with silicates. No to once so delicious salami, now red with sodium nitrate. No to processed cheeses, no again to irradiated bacon, pink phosphorescent ham, dead plastic pasteurized milk. No to chocolate pudding like Grandma never made. No thanks to Coca-Cola. No to freshness preservers, dough conditioners, no potassium sorbate, no aluminum silicate, no BHA, BHT, no diethylpropyl glycerate. No more ice cream, not with embalming fluid. Goodbye potato chips, peanut butter, jelly, jolly white sugar. No more DES all-American steaks or hamburgers either. Goodbye frozen fish, dipped and coated with Oreomycin. Fried eggs over easy with hormones, penicillin, and speed. Carnation instant breakfast, Nestle's quick. Fritos goodbye. Your labels are very confusing. All I can say is what my daughter, age 6, once said to me. If I can't pronounce it, maybe I shouldn't eat it. Or Dick Gregory coming out of a 20-day fast. The people of America are controlled by the food they eat. One more maybe or two. We should soon stop, huh? Okay. Take a good look at history, the American myth. Check sellout of revolution by the founding fathers. Constitution written by a bunch of gangsters to exploit a continent, is what Charles Olson told me. Check Shays' Rebellion, Aaron Burr, Nathan Hale, who wrote the history books where you went to school. Check Civil War. Maybe industrial North needed cheap labor, South had it. How many sincere movement people, writers and radicals, played into their hands. Check Haymarket trial. It broke the back of strong wobbly movement. How many jailed, fined, killed to stop that one. What's happening to us has happened a few times before. Let's change the script. What did it take to stop the Freedom Riders? What have we actually changed? Month I was born, they were killing onion pickers in Ohio. Month that I write this, nearly 40 years later, they're killing UFWs in the state I'm trying somehow to live in. Let's rewrite the history books. History repeats itself only if we let it. Okay, I think I'd stop these there if anybody wants to ask for anything or ask me anything or whatever more. What more came out of that sort of? I wrote it while the class was doing some writing assignment. So it's called Another Wyoming Song. It really needs to be shouted and chanted, and I'm not up to it. Silk sorry is famine, prayer is famine, stone idol washed by sea wind, also famine. Song on crumbling streets is famine, moonstone necklace, sandalwood essence, perfect Buddha caves, all famine. Teddy bear in Macy's window, famine. Tobacco bursting from Virginia soil, coal mines famine, oil field famine, new car famine. I got the toenail, boot sole, bootlegging wagon famine. Famine, cracked lips and all. Yesterday famine, tomorrow famine, iron wind breaking up the sandy ground like famine, like hunger to the heart. Got let's turn these stones to bread famine, burnt baby famine, wish I knew, and you do too, how to avert, turn aside. African famine, Egyptian famine, Sioux famine, Navajo famine, Mesopotamian famine, Easter Island famine, Tahitian famine, Sumerian famine, Sonoran famine, Hindu famine, mountain famine, woodland famine, desert famine, tundra famine, Great Plains famine, Papago famine, Evanston famine, Chicago famine, Casper famine, Bozeman to Billings famine, Minneapolis famine, Nevada sagebrush famine, Little Italy famine, Harlem famine, Chinatown famine, Tibetan famine, Third World famine, Fourth Dimension famine, Fifth Estate famine, Hungry Ghost famine, Black Panther famine, Oakland famine, Omaha famine, Amazon famine, Machu Picchu famine, alcohol famine, opium famine, Bengali famine, Brooklyn famine. All the bellies is swollen, some from too much, some from too little. All like to burst, only the crows, no famine. Hyena's not hungry, buzzard's not hungry. Jackal, coyote, eagle, filling up. A feast before they die, like we die, on dying land. There's, as I said, there's others. For Grandpa. Today is your birthday, and I have tried writing these things before. But now, in the gathering madness, I want to thank you for telling me what to expect. For pulling no punches back there in that scrubbed Bronx parlor. Thank you for honestly weeping in time to innumerable heartbreaking Italian operas. For pulling my hair when I pulled the leaves off the trees so I'd know how it feels. We are involved in it now, revolution, up to our knees, and the tide is rising. I embrace strangers on the street, filled with their love and mine, the love you told us had to come or we die. Told them all in that Bronx park, me listening in spring Bronx dusk, breathing stars, so glorious to me your white hair, your height, your fierce blue eyes, rare among Italians. I stood a ways off looking up at you, my grandpa, people listened to. I stand a ways off listening as I pour out soup, young men with light in their faces at my table, talking love, talking revolution, which is love, spelled backwards. How you would love us all, would thunder your anarchist wisdom at us, would thunder Dante and Giordano Bruno, orderly men bent to your ends. Well, I want you to know we do it for you and your ilk, for Carlo Tresca, for Sacco and Vanzetti without knowing it or thinking about it, as we do it for Aubrey Beardsley, Oscar Wilde, all streetlights shall be purple, do it for Trotsky and Shelley and big dumb Kropotkin, Eisenstein's Strike People, Jean Cocteau's Ennui. We do it for the stars over the Bronx, that they may look on earth and not be ashamed. Alrighty, should we stop there? Let's stop there.